August 7, 1942, at 02:14 hours, in the black silence before dawn, the first wave of United States Marines began wading ashore on a strip of beach forever etched into history. Beach-ridden Guadalcanal in the Solomon Islands. They carried the standard weapons of the day: M1 Garand rifles, Browning automatic rifles, Thompson submachine guns. But among those weapons was something unusual, something that would catch the Japanese completely off guard. Hidden in the hands of select 2 Marines was the Winchester Model 12 shotgun, a pump-action weapon originally designed for hunting, but now turned into one of the most devastating tools of close combat ever fielded in modern warfare. The Japanese defenders on Guadalcanal had prepared for rifle combat at a distance. They trained endlessly for bayonet charges and close-in sword fighting, convinced their warrior spirit would overwhelm American troops in hand-to-hand combat. What they had not prepared for was the brutal reality of American shotguns, weapons that could fire as fast as a man could pump the action. The mechanical simplicity of the Model 12, combined with its devastating spread of buckshot, would unravel Japanese tactical doctrine in the jungles, caves, and night fighting of the Pacific War. The numbers alone told the story. Each shell held 9.33 caliber pellets of double buckshot. A Marine firing 6 rounds in 3 seconds with the Model 12 could unleash 54 projectiles, saturating an area with lethal firepower faster than any Japanese soldier could dream of achieving with a bolt-action Arisaka rifle. For the 2,200 Japanese defenders on Guadalcanal, this was a weapon they'd never expected to face, one so devastating that Germany had actually tried to have it banned during World War I. The Germans had filed a formal diplomatic protest in 1918, claiming that American shotguns violated the Hague Convention because they caused unnecessary suffering. Their protest even threatened that any captured U.S. soldier carrying a shotgun could be executed on the spot. The United States dismissed the protest, warning that if a single American was executed for carrying a shotgun, reprisals would follow. No Americans were ever executed, and the shotgun remained in service. By the time World War II began, the Winchester Model 12 trench gun had been refined for military use. It had a shortened 20-in barrel, a heat shield, a bayonet lug, and most importantly, it retained the ability to slam fire. That meant a Marine could hold down the trigger and simply pump the action as fast as his arms could move, firing shell after shell in a near-continuous roar of destruction. For the Japanese, who relied on night fighting and close-in bayonet charges, this was a nightmare weapon. Japanese military manuals had emphasized that Americans were weak in close combat and dependent on long-range firepower. Their doctrine called for-night infiltration, surprise attacks, and the belief that spiritual superiority would win against Western forces. Early victories in China, Singapore, and the Philippines seemed to confirm this belief. But when they met American Marines carrying shotguns on Guadalcanal, those assumptions collapsed. The test came just 2 weeks after the landing. During the Battle of the Tenarú River on August 21, 1942, Colonel Kona Ichiki led nearly 1,000 Japanese soldiers in a night assault across a sandbar, intending to smash through the Marine perimeter. It was exactly the kind of close combat the Japanese doctrine glorified. But waiting for them were Marines armed with machine guns, artillery, and in the shadows, shotgun or armed riflemen. As the Japanese surged forward, they were met with a storm of fire. Marines fired Garands and bars into the masses. But in the deadly close-in fighting along the riverbank, the Winchester Model 12 came into its own. At ranges of 20 yards or less, a single shotgun blast tore through multiple attackers at once. Slam-firing Marines turned their weapons into rapid-fire cannons. When dawn broke, the sandbar was littered with bodies. Of the 916 Japanese who began the charge, nearly 800 lay dead. The effectiveness of the shotgun wasn't just in its killing power, but also in its psychological effect. In the darkness of the jungle, the sound of a pump-action cycling, the sharp metallic cha-chunk sent shivers down Japanese infiltrators' spines. Marines used the weapon in ways that rifles simply couldn't match. On night patrols, the shotgun became the weapon of the pointman, delivering immediate devastating firepower at the first sign of an ambush. In defensive perimeters, Marines loaded their shotguns and waited in the blackness. When Japanese infiltrators crawled silently toward the lines with bayonets and grenades, one blast of buckshot ended the attack instantly. As the war dragged on into 1943 and 1944, the shotgun proved itself again and again. In the jungles of New Georgia, Marines gave their point men the Winchester Model 12 specifically to counter ambushes. A single blast could break UPA Japanese patrol before it had a chance to strike. At night, shotgun-armed Marines were stationed in overlapping fields of fire, turning infiltration attempts into suicide missions. The weapon also became a tool for jungle lane shooting. Marines would fire down trails or into vegetation where Japanese soldiers might be hiding. The spread of buckshot, tearing through foliage and hitting hidden targets. But perhaps the most terrifying use of the Model 12 came in cave and bunker warfare. Starting at Tarawa in November 1943 and reaching its brutal peak at Iwo Jima and Okinawa, the Japanese turned entire islands into fortresses of rock, coral, and concrete. Marines had to crawl into caves, crawl up ridges, and fight enemies hidden in dark chambers. Here the shotgun was unmatched. Marines developed the technique of firing into cave mouths, letting the buckshot ricochet off walls, creating a deadly storm inside confined spaces. Survivors described the noise as horrifying. Ricocheting pellets winded and screamed in every direction, making it seem like death came from all around, even when it didn't kill outright. The psychological terror often forced Japanese soldiers to abandon positions. On Saipan in July 1944, during the largest Japanese banzai charge of the war, thousands of Japanese soldiers hurled themselves at American lines. While machine guns and artillery inflicted the bulk of casualties, the chaos of close-in fighting saw shotgun-armed Marines holding the line in desperate moments. Their ability to unleash clouds of lead into charging soldiers made the difference in sectors where the enemy briefly broke through. On Iwo Jima, the shotgun became part of blowtorch and cork crew. Tactics, flamethrowers provided fire and smoke, demolition. Charges sealed tunnels and shotguns. Delivered the killing blow inside. Fortifications. Marines even developed skip shooting, deliberately bouncing buckshot off tunnel walls to hit enemies hiding around corners. Despite its effectiveness, the Model 12 was never mass-issued. Only about 61,000 were produced during the war, a tiny number compared to millions of rifles. They were given to units most likely to own them. Marines and rifle companies, Army assault teams, Navy landing parties, even Air Force guards defending airfields. Ammunition, however, was plentiful. Millions of shells were produced, including standard buckshot, solid slugs for longer range, and smaller shot for clearing vegetation. For the Marines who carried them, the Model 12 was a weapon of choice. Some preferred rifles, but many swore by the shotgun's ability to dominate close combat. Veterans recalled the confidence it gave them at night, knowing that if the Japanese came close, they had the ultimate weapon waiting. The Japanese, for their part, never found a real counter. They experimented with crude body armor made from wood or bamboo, but it was heavy, awkward, and largely ineffective. Their only real defense was to try to avoid getting close enough, but their entire doctrine relied on close attacks. The story of the Model 12 is not just about hardware. It reflects the American approach to war: pragmatic, adaptable, and willing to use any tool that worked. Where other armies clung to tradition, the Marines embraced innovation. They didn't wait for top-down doctrine. They experimented in the field, learned what worked, and passed it along. Techniques like skip shooting, mixed ammunition loads, and shotgun assault teams weren't invented in laboratories. They were born in the jungles and caves of the Pacific by Marines trying to survive. By war's end, the shotgun had carved out a fearsome reputation. It was never the main weapon of the war, but in the specific brutal environments of the Pacific, it was irreplaceable. In night fighting, jungle patrols, bunker assaults, and desperate last stands, the Winchester Model 12 gave Marines and soldiers a weapon that shattered Japanese tactical assumptions. Even after the war, its legacy lived on. The Model 12 served in Korea, where once again it proved itself in night fighting. In Vietnam, shotguns were issued to point men patrolling dense jungles and for tunnel fighting, echoing the cave-clearing days of World War II. Its influence carried forward into modern military shotguns, and its philosophy, overwhelming close-range firepower, can still be seen in weapons like the A-10 Warthog and the AC-130 gunship. For the Japanese soldiers who faced it, the Model 12 was more than just a weapon. It was a terrifying contradiction of everything they had believed. They expected Western soldiers to falter in close combat. Instead, they found themselves shredded by blasts of buckshot in the dark jungle or inside caves. The shotgun, simple yet devastating, proved that American force could adapt faster, innovate smarter, and fight with overwhelming firepower at every range. From Guadalcanal to Okinawa, the Disti.